How to turn safe tabled. Since my last Linux video, where I was kinda negative about it, my views have changed. Before, Windows 10 without the extra apps and telemetry was my default option. I needed something to run my software, nothing more. The problem with that is that Windows 10 is dying very soon. So with that impending doom in mind, I continue to try to make the switch. Because I'm going to be real with you, Windows 11 kinda isn't doing it for me. There are some positive changes, but mostly it's negatives. All that AI bullshit, I don't need it. I don't need AI in every app I use. The telemetry is worse with the implementation of recall. Not to forget the changes in language on the group policy editor and this pop-up that acts like my mouse is on the option. Gone are the days of allow telemetry, level 0 security, enterprise. Welcome, allow diagnostic data off, not recommended. And yeah, this is for the enterprise versions. These are the ISOs I had on me. But the point still stands. They keep moving into the direction where you have no choice but to give them the data they want. Even on the enterprise version, which is supposed to be for corporations and stuff, you aren't recommended to disable the telemetry. And you know what? I don't really care about those things. I wasted so much of my time caring about this stuff. Because let's be real, with how the politics are moving, there will be no privacy left in a few years. The kids that are growing up with these policies aren't going to care about some abstract concept of privacy online. The kernel level anti-cheats are a prime example of that. Go to someone that works 8 hours at his job, comes back home to a game of Valorant because that's what he enjoys, and tell him you shouldn't play this game because you are enabling these companies to go deeper into your computer. I can bet with a 90% chance that he won't care. And why should he, if he isn't into tech and the problems that come with this suit guy selling his data for profit? He wouldn't care. Or go to a kid that has no way of understanding these complicated problems. Where was I? Switching to Linux. So yeah, I stopped caring that much about how this evil corporation is spying on me. So I was thinking of moving to Windows 11, but as I was using it more, I would find more problems with it. Even on a fresh install, it wouldn't be long until the file explorer would be slow and stuttery. Equalizer APO doesn't really want to work. Last time I installed it on Windows 11, the plugins, which is mostly noise suppression, wouldn't work. Connecting to my Mumble server would take a long time. I use Mumble so I can use my phone as a microphone. I would start a server, connect both my PC and my phone to it, and use the Mumble playback from my PC as a microphone. Yeah, there is some latency, but it's not that bad. Either way, I had problems with that. Edge randomly starting even though I disabled the auto start in the task manager. Copilot being installed without my permission. These problems I can overlook, but lately I started caring more about customization. I will go more into details when I talk about my new baseline for a system, but for Windows you can't really do much in terms of customization, and you don't really realize that until you use something that lets you change everything. There is a wall that you will hit pretty fast if you want to mess with customization on Windows. But let's move on to VMs. VMs or Windows aren't really that great. Realistically, you have two options, VirtualBox and Hyper-V. I won't count VMware because you need a bullshit account to download even the free version. I ain't doing all that. First of all, VirtualBox. It's a third-party free and open source VM software. It's pretty good, but I have some problems with it that I don't believe it's VirtualBox's fault. The other VM software is Hyper-V, which is the first-party Microsoft virtualization software. This is my preferred option just because it's from Microsoft, so it should be generally better integrated with Windows. Both of them have the same problems though. Pass-through of physical hardware, mainly storage devices and GPUs. For storage devices, there isn't really an easy way and it's very manual. You need to go to the terminal, find the storage device you want to pass to the VM, disconnect it, and then adding it in the VM settings. And for GPUs, you can't pass one GPU to the VM. There is something that lets you split the GPU to multiple devices, example host and VM, but it's only for a few cards and it's kinda annoying. And if I'm being frank, there isn't much of a reason for me to use VMs on Windows. Because on Linux, I use them so I can edit videos, or to let some of my cousins and nieces to play stuff like Roblox and Minecraft without interfering to my personal stuff. For the first use, there is no need for VMs because I can already run the softwares. And the second one is pretty rare that they come to my house, and I'm near the PC either way, so they can't mess it up that bad. There are other reasons for VM, like running malware for testing purposes, or for running pirated software so you don't infect your PC. which I don't say you should do, because it's illegal in most places to pirate copyrighted content. But if you do it, I want you to be safe. The use case aside, I'm going to show you how easy it's to pass a drive to a VM in Linux. I use qemu/kvm with Virtual Machine Manager for a GUI interface, which I would recommend if you plan to use VMs on Linux. So I open the app, it's going to ask for my password. I'm going to create a Windows 11 Enterprise VM just for demonstration purposes. You press the Create VM button, select Local Install Media, press Forward, browse to where your ISO is, in my case in the Download folder, and select the ISO. It's going to see it as a Windows 10 OS, so disable the automatic detection, delete the text and write Win11 and enter. Choose how much memory and CPU you want to allocate the VM. I'm going to let 8 GB for memory and 1 for CPU. Choose how much storage you want your C drive to have. Give it a name, and before clicking finish, check the customize configuration box. I like to do some things before I install Windows. First, make sure the firmware is UEFI. Then on the CPU's menu, I manually change the topology to give the VM 4, 6 or however many cores I want. And don't forget to apply every change. Then I like to remove the network and the tablet. On the display spice menu, change the listen type to none and check the OpenGL box. You will see a warning that OpenGL only works with Verzio graphics with 3D acceleration enabled. Go to Video QXL, change the model to Verzio and enable 3D acceleration. And at this point you can add additional hardware. Press Add, go to Storage, select or create custom storage and paste the drive path. You can find that in the File Manager app. Right-click the drive you want, Properties, and copy the Mounted From text. For me it's the actual path. If I'm not mistaken, SD stands for SATA drive, and the ABCD after that is where it's connected on the motherboard, and the number is the partition. Either way, copy that and paste it here, and finish. Now you can click to start the VM and install Windows as normal. I already had a Windows 11 VM, so I'm going to add the drive there just to show you how it looks on Windows. You can do the same for external USB devices, or use the USB host device page and add your drive like that. I know it sounded complicated just because I needed to show you how the software works first. But the disconnecting of the device and connecting it back, it's done by Virt Manager, as it's called in the biz. And after you close the VM, you can just go to the File Manager and mount the drive back. As for passing a GPU, I'm not going to explain in this video because it's more complicated. The difference in comparison with Windows is that Linux is community driven. It's generally more easy to do it if you have 2 GPUs, but you can do it with one like me. I'm going to link the video that helped me in the description, which is for a single GPU pass-through. Back to the main point. One more annoyance I have with Windows is the fact that it can decide by itself to wake up while it's on sleep. That too is more of a recent problem for me because I didn't use sleep that much, but I started using it when I had a lot of apps open in the positions I wanted them to be. I use multiple virtual desktops for different stuff I'm doing. One is the default, one is for gaming, one is for YouTube stuff, etc. And I wanted it to be the way I left them. This started because of Linux, of all things. To be more specific, Hyperland with its startup apps and window rules. Having everything at the press of a shortcut is actually so cool. Speaking of Linux, now that I don't have any more stuff to complain about Windows, let's talk about my new baseline for what a system should be. If you know your Linux stuff, you probably figured it out, but it's Endeavor with KDE Plasma. I tried a lot of distros and window manager combos, but there were personal problems everywhere. My first recommendation for new Linux users is Linux Mint, which is a fantastic choice. I wanted to use Mint as my main machine, but there is an incompatibility with the way I use my computer. Like I said before, I insert noise suppression plugins to my Mumble server output and use it as a microphone. It's a very jank way to do it, but the sound is good enough for now. There is a problem with Mint and any Debian-based systems. The jack server doesn't really work as it should. Ideally, I would have every source of input and output separately, so I can choose to route it the way I need it to. I use Carla to insert the plugins and QJackCTL for the easy routing. The mumble playback goes to either another physical sound card, in my case a Navi controller bullshit, or directly to the auto gain. The problem with the direct approach is that it would route it first to the headphones, so I would come in Carla to disconnect the line. Either way is fine, but I need to have all the sources visible. Well, with Debian-based systems, all the inputs and outputs would combine to system input and output, breaking my whole system. I couldn't find a solution to this problem, even though I come from time to time trying to resolve it, because I wanted to use Mint as my main system. Not any particular reason, I just think it's a good Linux distro. Fedora and Fedora-based systems aren't it either, because since the Fedora 42 version, I have problems installing it. I tried AlpineOS because in my last video, a viewer said it's more lightweight than Arch. The problem is that there isn't that much of a community around it. NixOS was a very good contender, but single GPU pass-through are more complicated than on your regular Linux distro, so I gave up. I had some problems with OpenSUSE the last time I used it, don't remember the details. Now to where I ended up on, EndeavourOS with KDE. Endeavour is an Arch-based distro, and very vanilla at that. They just make it easy for you to install Arch, with the basic packages that you would probably need. You can choose between different window managers while installing it, but I either choose the KDE or Node Desktop options. KDE is pretty self-explanatory, and Node Desktop is for when I want to install a Hyperland dot. But if you want to try it, you should choose KDE Plasma. For context, I didn't use Linux on the pre-Plasma 6 days, so I don't know how bad it was. But the current iteration is quite literally the most complete desktop experience I can find. If you are a Windows user, it will feel familiar, but the biggest positive I can say is that it's very customizable with the GUI settings it gives you. I'm not going to go into a lot of details because there is a lot of small stuff you can change that you aren't able to do in Windows, for example. One example is having identical taskbars on all your displays, but then choosing which one to hide. Or having two identical taskbars, which you can't on Windows, because they're the system tray apps, and notifications are only visible on the main display. Enough, it's customizable. Something I know will appear in the comments is CashOS. It's an Arch-based distro that is getting very popular as of lately. And don't get me wrong, it's a good distro. The problem for me comes from their hyperfixation on speed. No, not that guy. I mean having the fastest Linux system, which is cool. But in their quest for speed, they made some choices. Having custom kernels and package repos, and using the fish shell. The first weren't that big of a deal, unless there is an update to Discord and you need to wait for the custom repo that comes a bit later, an hour or two, I don't know. But using fish as your default shell really makes me not wanting to recommend it to beginners. Because as someone that isn't that experienced with Linux, I've wasted a few good hours because I didn't know why a script wasn't working. I'm talking about the Jacolit's Hyperland install script. And yeah, fair, not CashOS fault, but even as someone that has tried Linux for some time when that happened, I still didn't know what the problem was. And again, it's my fault for not knowing the difference between the shell options. But another example would be my script for enabling Malvad VPN split tunneling for Plex Media Server automatically. It's a very simple script, but even that needed to be adjusted to work on CashOS, because the distros that use fish as their default are very few. And before you say, CashOS comes with ZSH, so you can change it. Yeah, I found that later, but they choose to make fish the default for a reason. So unless I find the reason and I'm okay with disregarding it, I ain't doing it. Where was I coming from? Ah yeah, not recommending it for beginners. The reason is simple, not many people use it, so most of the documentation is for bash or ZSH. And I don't want someone to have a problem with no easy way to resolve it and giving up on Linux because of this one bad experience. So yeah, my new baseline is the flexibility of Arch and the easy customizability of KDE. If you want me to expand on any particular topic, just let me know. But that's all from me for now.